live stream the meeting. Okay, I just got a pop-up that it's going to a third-party platform. I think we're live, guys. I think I did it. Okay. And I'm going to mute the video because I don't want to have that echoing in my ear the whole time, but I can even see the chat stream. So, hello, people of the internet. Oh my goodness. So, had no plan of how to start this meeting, to be honest with you. So, we're just going to get right into it. I was sharing before we started this and hit the record button that I think that SIBO is oftentimes a world where people frankly lose hope. I see posts sometimes on the Facebook groups of like, is it even possible to heal SIBO? And it's always met with crickets. And I think that part of that is that once you heal, you no longer have a use for that group. And so you leave the group. And so it's only the sick people who are still in that group. But I think that and a lot of other reasons leave people believing that SIBO is impossible to cure. They're just doomed to have it forever. There's no hope for them. Even if they do treat it, it's just going to relapse right away anyway. And it's pretty friggin' depressing. But I wanted this call to be hopefully a beacon of hope for a lot of you that it is possible to heal. And I have some living, breathing proof here of some folks that I helped and they were able to heal their gut or largely heal their gut. And they're doing pretty rad at the time. So guys, without further ado, let's get enough of what I have to say because I've done so many videos on this channel now. I I've said everything that is there is to say. But do we want to go around the room, so to speak, and maybe do a little intro and share as much of your tummy story as you feel comfortable with? Let's go. So the order that I see you on my screen, at least, let's start with Aga, then Nikki, then Linz, then Allie. And then if Alex is able to join us, he'll be kind of at the tail end of the lineup here and we'll go round robin. So Aga, do you want to open us up? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so I basically had some other health issue at first. I was a pretty healthy person, right? And then when I was in my early 20s, I started getting some issues, and I won't really get into the detail of that, but I had to take a bunch of antibiotics. So I did multiple rounds of antibiotics, had some issues with that, but kind of seemed like I got better for a little bit. But basically, that was like my catalyst of issues, right? So, as everybody that's taken a bunch of antibiotics knows, it can cause a lot of digestive issues, but I guess I didn't really connect the dots because that wasn't the only thing that was the problem. It was all kinds of other things that ended up accumulating. Um, and it took me a really, really long time before I kind of understood like what was even going on. But long story short, some of the type of symptoms that I had were nausea, lack of appetite, like could basically not eat. So that was kind of how that presented for me. And I know everybody's a little bit different in that sense, but basically, after a few years of that kind of struggle, like going up and down, getting a little bit better, then getting worse, getting a little bit better, then worse, I ended up feeling just overall like systemic type of issue. So it went from just digestive, kind of like localized pain and things like that to like systemic. Yeah. So, fatigue, started having some kind of almost like nervous system, maybe dysautonomia type of things. Um, and yeah, things like eye twitching, like my eye was twitching for like 4 months straight and nobody could tell me why.
Jeez.
Um, yeah, so just weird things like that. And again, like through trial and error, seeing a bunch of different practitioners. I even went to go see like a functional neurologist who was really helpful, but like it wasn't, doing the thing. And basically figured out that I was deficient in a bunch of things, right? And so that was kind of probably the thing that was causing all these really terrible symptoms and just feeling generally like crap. Um, and
Well, you
some
had
days
said
I was, yeah.
Oh, sorry. You had said that nausea and poor appetite were two of
Hmm.
your symptoms, right? So,
Yeah,
like, those are gonna probably make it hard to nourish yourself and eat a
exactly.
healthy diet. And then it's like,
Hmm.
the issue compounds on itself the longer it persists. So you were in
Yes.
that spiral for a couple of years, it sounds like.
Yes, so much. And I know we'll obviously talk about the program in a little bit, but that's why I resonated with you so much is because on y'all's podcast, you always talk about like how much nutrition is so important. The thing that was missing for me though was like once I understood that piece, it took me a while to understand that. But once I understood that, it was bridging the gap of like, okay, I have this understanding, but how do I translate that into action?
Mm.
Because, I would wake up in the morning and I'd have no appetite. Um, Anytime I would try to cook, I would immediately be like, I cannot eat. Like smelling food, like just food was such a trigger. Um, and that became a more of a nervous system issue too. And that was something that I had to kind of like figure out how to unravel. And it's a journey. It's a marathon. So obviously still working on a lot of things, but just realizing the fact that like dealing with um, low appetite or like this like weird relationship with food um, creates like an expectation in your body and your nervous system. So anytime I would sit down to eat, I'd be freaking out, even though I didn't realize I was freaking out, but my body was freaking out. So it's a lot of little puzzle pieces that kind of came together for me. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I would say like the thing that I mean the digestive issues were bad enough, but really the systemic thing was where I was like, okay, I really need to figure this out because I can't function. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
It kind
basically
of,
it.
that was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. Or I guess actually that metaphor is more appropriate where you were saying that it was a lot of little things that just kind of
Hmm.
piled up together.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, it was a stinky place to be stuck for so long, but I'm glad that
Hmm.
you're on the mend now. And
Yeah.
I've said this in recent podcast and videos too, that because you said that you're still working on some stuff. I mean,
Hmm.
heck, so am I.
Hmm.
I don't want anybody to have the illusion that like Amy or I or any influencer or any person on YouTube or social media has all their shit figured out. They don't. If it
Hmm.
appears that they do, they just are really good at hiding it.
Right.
But I think that every living, breathing human being has something that they're working on with either their mental health or their physical health or
Hmm.
like lifestyle or habits. I think that's kind of part of the human experience is just embracing that and knowing that there's always going to be something that you could improve or work
Yeah.
on and that's
I
okay. But
I totally agree, and I think that that comes with a certain level of acceptance, first of all, because I feel like people are always looking for like the end goal, but you realize it's just a process, and like you said, everybody's a living being. Like we're not stagnant, we're not the same. Every day's different. There's a million things that impact how we feel, or like there's so many things that can influence you that it's not about being perfect, but it's also being
yeah,
aware and also learning how to pay attention to your body, which is something that
that's my girl.
I did not know at all. And that's part of the reason why I got into the mess in the first place. Had I known this when I was, a teenager, like I could have prevented a lot of these things. But I see some of the major kind of mistakes, if I can even say that, that I made
Yeah,
with my lifestyle and nutrition and everything that kind of led me to that path of having really poor resiliency, and that's kind of what I've seen
yeah,
with other people that have dealt with things like this. It's like, yes, there's this thing that may happen, and it's like you said, the last straw, but before that, there's all these tiny things that are going on, or sometimes big things, right?
exactly.
That you just don't even realize. And so learning how to pay attention and knowing like, okay, I'm not going to wake up every morning and feel like $1 million. I mean, that's just not realistic, right? Like there's all
Yeah,
kinds of things
there's
going
going to be
on, right?
days you're a little bloated. There's going to be days that you
Right.
have like oddball constipation or a headache or something.
Sure,
Um,
exactly. Exactly. But like
yeah,
knowing how to deal with that, having some tools in your toolbox and just being aware, I think is so huge.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. I couldn't have said it better myself. And honestly, it makes me think of that cliff metaphor that I talk about so much.
Hmm.
It's like we are really good at perceiving the difference between I don't know how do I do this without my whiteboard? Gosh darn it. We're really good at perceiving the difference between doop doo doop doo doo, feet on the ground, feeling really good, and oh my God, off the cliff, not feeling good.
Hmm.
But we, like collectively, we as humans suck really bad at telling the difference between living life right on the edge in a not good way
Yep.
versus being way the heck over here and having that resiliency so that if something minor comes along and moves you this way, it's not the end of the world and you don't get a relapse or symptoms from it.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think
Exactly.
we probably talk about that metaphor minimum once a week in FODMAP Freedom, if I'm being honest, because it comes up again and again. Hold on, by the way, guys, we have a chat going in this YouTube live. Let me see if there's anything particular. Like, I want to read them as we go, and that way, if somebody has a question for one of you guys specifically, I can capture that. Oh, Jenny said she signed up and she's excited. Yay, I'm excited too.
Yay.
Um, oh, Ashley said some familiar faces, missed the group. Oh, Stephanie's watching too. Hi, Stephanie. She said, so proud of you all. Ah, shoot. We could just pinch your little cheeks. But let's keep the party going. And I'll keep an eye on the chat in case anybody has specific questions for you guys. But without further ado, Nikki too, do you want to take the stage? So this was the running gag when Nikki was in FODMAP Freedom. So we spell our name the same way, the best way. And so we refer to each other as Nikki 1, Nikki 2. But welcome. You want to tell a little bit about your story?
Sure. Okay. So my story, my primary issue was IBS. And then when I met Dr. Nikki was really more toward the end of the spectrum where it was just getting intolerable. And it probably wasn't just IBS at that point, but, never really had testing, all the things, whatever. I don't even know if you can get a true definitive anyway. So, I didn't have all of that, but I just, for me, I felt like it went into that kind of field of what might be considered a like SIBO type symptoms. And so what had happened is I've for years had IBS symptoms for years, like decades now. And I've just always managed it. And I really managed it about 10 years ago when I really realized that's what it was, but not having a root cause for it. And so my management was really just diet and lifestyle. And that's the field I also work in. So I teach people how to to manage their life with diet and lifestyle as a fitness instructor, a yoga teacher, a Pilates teacher, all the things. So I'm very well versed in knowing how my body feels, but it didn't mean that I could do anything about what was happening at that time without someone else giving me a little bit of extra tools and some information, which is where FODMAP Freedom came in. But it really progressed over time to where about 2020, I was already still working from home anyway. I taught online a lot already, so that wasn't a huge deal for me. But I went on a kind of plant-based diet too at that time. And that was perfectly fine. I was very healthy. I got extremely lean. I was like super happy with my results of my diet and lifestyle and all the things. And I was eating, lots of really great fiber and all that. But that's when I started to really, really feel what was happening. And I think that prior to that, in the last 5 years prior to that, I had throughout my life had lots of antibiotics, like you mentioned before. But I think in those 5 years prior to this flare up, which is so many things, there was probably, who knows for sure, but I mean, I think there was like maybe scar tissues, issues there in the abdomen. There was lots of antibiotics because I'd had staph infections several times. I had a tooth issue, and that had caused me to have lots of antibiotics and root canals and things like that. So I really think that maybe kind of set the stage. And then whenever I was completely plant-based, it was just fiber and high FODMAP foods.
Well, and I wonder too, you could have easily had some nutritional deficiencies. And I say this as I was a vegetarian for 11 years, so there's no hate for plant-based eaters, but now in retrospect and knowing what I know about nutrition, I'm much more willing to admit the likelihood of having like a B12 deficiency or a zinc deficiency or iron deficiency is just so great when you are eating plant-based. I think that almost every diet has good and bad qualities to it. So on the one hand, you were getting lots of fiber and lots of roughage, and that's great. And you were probably getting plenty of folate and like certain nutrients that are found in abundance in plant foods, but you probably also had some insufficiencies or deficiencies. And I'm kind of at a point nutritionally where I don't think that that could be supplemented around even.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's probably a difference between getting like vitamin B12 through food versus a supplement. So even if you're a vegan or a vegetarian and you take a B12 supplement, I'm not convinced that that's the same. So anyway, that could have been a piece of it for you too.
And, and I don't know for sure what all, but I mean, I really feel like it was more about what was going on with my gut. Right. I mean, I know that the nutrition has to do with that and the nutritional deficiencies would as well. I did not get testing though. At the time, I wasn't in a position to go get a lot of testing done. So I didn't have necessarily even a nutritional baseline to go off of at that time, but mostly just working with symptoms. And
Yeah.
so with that, it was just at a point to where I was just like constantly bloated, pain. I know what IBS pain feels like. And for me, it was like, down deep in the lower part of the gut, but this was like a pain that was up high, kind of right around the solar plexus area. And I just had this constant, it hurt. I just hurt. I just sat around. I tell my husband, I just hurt. And so it was just getting to the point where I couldn't eat anything that I just didn't hurt. So I did go at that time. I started on a low FODMAP diet, because that's, I started doing all the research I could, getting onto all the podcasts I could, getting all the information that I could, hoping something would be helpful that would, trying to educate myself and like a lot of other people, not knowing which direction to go, not knowing who to trust, not knowing who to talk to. So you just kind of feel like you're lost in a big sea, just your little bitty self and big OC. But I figured out that going low FODMAP was helping. I mean, I know that wasn't a cure, but it was a Band-Aid and it helped.
It is an effective Band-Aid.
So at that time, if I knew that the low FODMAP was helping, well, then that had something to do with it to me in my mind. I was like, well, then there's got to be some connection here. And my understanding at that time was just, well, if there's a connection with the FODMAPs, there's probably something going on with your gut and or the lining of your gut or something, or there's some other infection or there's something going or whatever, I mean, I didn't know which direction to go. So that's kind of, and that's whenever going through all the different leads of different people to get information from is how I found FODMAP Freedom. So yeah.
I still remember when you first reached out because I remember distinctly that your goal was to be able to eat Mexican food for your wedding. And if I'm not mistaken, you had your Mexican buffet for your wedding. I
did have a Mexican buffet for my wedding. And that was like over a year later, or 2022 when we got married. So it was the end of 2020. And one of the things that you asked in FODMAP Freedom was, tell me what one of your goals would be, one of your basic goals. It could be something simple, whatever. Mine was, I want to eat Mexican food again because I love Mexican. As a matter of fact, it's Taco Tuesday right now while we're recording. And I'm going to have Taco Tuesday with my girlfriends later tonight. And
heck you are.
I can eat anything that I want to when I go.
And your vagus nerve's just going to be smiling. You know that GIF of Winnie the Pooh, like doing a little happy dance? You're going to be like Winnie the Pooh. Your vagus nerve is going to be so toned from this Mexican.
And I'm sure we'll get into all of those things too as we progress through our conversations. But I mean, those were a big part of it, Now, like I said, I teach people about how to, get into parasympathetic states and all these other things. However, I wasn't utilizing a lot of this information in a way that was useful for myself. And I wasn't really paying attention. That's okay. I mean, the teacher, teach thyself, whatever,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just did a YouTube video. I think it was my video from last week or maybe the week before. And I talked about my ferritin level being a little bit over the years. And I was cracking up because at the end of the day, the kind of takeaway from the video was not anything totally monumental or mysterious or sexy. And I should have known, right? Because I'm in the nutrition space. But it's really hard to be your own healer. It's really hard to be your own doctor because we all have these blinders on. Even somebody like me who's very aware of the idea of blinders and try to keep open-minded, and it's really hard to be your own healer. So it's the ultimate irony here, Pilates instructor, yoga instructor, health fitness coach person who totally knows all the book learning about the vagus nerve and the importance of, breath work and that sort of stuff. And then that ended up being really helpful for you. So
those are the things that I probably are the biggest tools that I currently have. And I can, again, as we progress and go through some more information, as we all go through our stories, but I can give you more information on that too later. But it's just that I mean, those are the biggest things in my toolbox were those first few, lessons that we went through in this program. And it was really things I still carry with me today. And it changed, just tweaks, so many little bitty tweaks. And it was just so helpful. Yeah.
I've said for a while, I think that the core curriculum of FODMAP Freedom is actually the first like 4 or maybe 5 modules. Everything after that is kind of like bonus content in my mind, but the real crux of it is like that first 4 or 5 module kind of stuff. By the way, hold on, we've got some more comments. You guys, you are popular. Look at this go. Let's see. Well, we've got just some fun ones. Lynn's, your mom is on right now. And she said, I'm Lynn's mom, and I'm just thrilled that she discovered your channel. It's truly been a miracle in my eyes. Mom, she's precious. Well, it's your daughter's turn next anyway. Lynn's, come on down. Yeah, let's hear a little bit about your story. That's so I love your mom already. Hi, Trey. Okay.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah.
So sure. So we bonded. So look, we have all these weird little backstories. So Nikki and I bonded over the correct spelling of our name, and among other things, Mexican food. Liz and I, we initially, I think like you were saying that one of the ways that you found me was that I happened to be wearing a Buffalo t-shirt in one of my thumbnails on YouTube. And you were like, shut up, you're from Buffalo. And then I remember when we connected initially, we were talking about like Buffalo stuff and our love of Wegmans and everything Western New York. So that was kind of a fun little thing for us too. But yeah, share a little bit about your story if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. It's really amazing how everything came together. And thank you guys. Thank you everyone else for sharing, and thank you guys for tuning in. So it turns out I've had basically IBS since age 4, and every single holiday, or getting sweets and candy, made me sick. I was like this weirdo kid who would go trick-or-treating and then not eat my candy because I just couldn't. And I would say one of my earliest memories in life is cooking pizza homemade with my friends when I was like 4 or 5, and then sitting in the bathroom in pain for hours after. And that's probably the first thing I remember in my life.
Yeah.
Just kind of having to bring my own food everywhere and everything. And it kind of came to a head, particularly I was playing ice hockey actually, or my early teenage years, and very Buffalo thing to do.
Very New York
and my
thing.
dad was like, it's a great idea to give pasta before a game because carbs and energy, right?
Carbo loading. Yep.
Yeah. And so like one day he did it, and I had a huge thing of pasta, and then I just like puked after. And so that's when it kind of came to a head of like, okay, well, that's really weird because I wasn't sick. That just kind of happened. And so went to the old primary, and they're like, you have IBS, just go gluten-free. And so I just have this memory of walking into my kitchen after that, looking around everywhere and like, suddenly overnight, I can't eat anything. Not that I really could before, but I just thought it was normal. So I just kind of lived in pain. I don't know. It's like a martyr kind of thing. But yeah. And then my good family friend made me some gluten-free cake. And I also got sick from that, but I was like, okay, well, I guess it's probably still fine. So yeah, I've always had this dual, like random stuff making me sick and sugar making me sick. Jumping ahead, kind of last 2 years, I went to England for a trip, and I felt so amazing there all of a sudden. And this wasn't like IBS wasn't something I was actively pursuing or trying to fix. I just kind of was like dealing with it. But I also like started this Buddhist practice where people were encouraging me to chant to cure the impossible. And it kind of presented itself. I was in England, and I was like eating, and I still don't really know how to explain this, but I was eating like desserts, sweets, all this stuff. And I felt like so good. But something in like my life kind of told me like, maybe this is a microbial difference. Maybe I'm just in a different landscape and my microbes aren't used to this. I had no idea about SIBO, anything. It's just something kind of came up. And then, I came back from England, and actually my mom was with me visiting, and I just like couldn't eat anything after that. It was just the worst it had ever been. It's like my body kind of got a break, and then I came back and it was just like awful. And like my first meal getting off the plane was just like a homemade lemon sorbet from a roommate, just like lemon, water, and sugar. And it just decimated me in pain. And I was like, okay, clearly something's not right here. Cause like, you know, as horrible as the American food chain might be with the preservatives and stuff, like other people can tolerate this, right? So
Yeah. Well, and that brings up that resiliency idea too. Like, why are
mhm.
some people resilient enough to put up with our crappy food system,
Right.
but others are not?
Hmm. Yeah. And so I just started me searching for answers this day and night. Like, I need to find this out. Need to find this out. Just started researching. Had no idea really what to research for. But I just went to an event with my brother, and you know, they had some food there, and it's like usually awkward. Like, oh, what's this? Is that gluten free? Like, what is this ingredient? You know, it's just so awkward socially trying to eat just when you have digestive problems, especially over your whole life. And someone just sensed me being weird, and they came up to me. They're like, do you have SIBO? My roommate has SIBO. Maybe you have that. And just out of the blue, I've never met this person, and they said that. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, but I'm gonna go check it out. And so I thought it was, yeah, I thought it maybe was SIBO or this rare sugar intolerance called CSID, because sugar just really bothered me. And yeah, my official diagnosis after that, I did go to get breath testing. It came back SIBO, methane dominant. It was not CSID. That was just like, yeah, but it did the breath testing. And yeah, IBS-C, generally constipation, and just like a lot of gas. This is so embarrassing in public. Hard
And
to have
it's
friends.
hey man, you'd be surprised what I talk about day in and day out. Nothing phases me anymore, but I appreciate you guys being here live on YouTube for others to benefit from your story. That is probably foreign and weird and bold feeling for somebody who's not on YouTube all the time like I am. But yeah, and I remember too that at least when we met, you had landed on the low FODMAP diet, and that was helpful to some degree. And I remember that FODzyme was really helpful. But again, it was a band-aid. So you had this inkling like, oh, there's something going on. There's something more I could be doing, right?
Yeah. I've searched out like GIs high and low. I like drove to LA from the Northern California to like find this GI. Like they said online, they test for SIBO, blah, blah, blah. And so yeah, they started me on 2 weeks of like, what is it, like 3,000 milligrams a day of rifaximin and neomycin, like, and just so much antibiotics, which is so ironic. And yeah, I actually felt pretty great on them. I remember him telling me, you know, like, you know, you're gonna be able to eat with your friends, go to restaurants, like have a normal life, right? And then like the day after the antibiotics end, I get like super bloated, super gassy. And I call them, I'm like, hey, is this normal? And they're like, no. And then it's like, bye. It was like literally that
Good
was
luck.
it. Yeah. They're like, we could try it again, you know, if you want. And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, I want to. I see where this is going. If it didn't really work,
Yeah.
I don't really trust it to work. And the insurance, you know, I had to pay out like $2,000 for antibiotics or something. It's like,
Yeah, it's pretty bonkers and it's not very sustainable, but I see that all the time. Like people will do an antimicrobial, whether it's prescription or herbal, and they'll feel good on it. Because again, it's an
mhm,
effective band-aid. It's kind of similar to low FODMAP in that regard for a lot of people. It is an effective band-aid, but the minute you remove the band-aid, it's like the wound is still there. You didn't apply the ointment or whatever you needed to actually heal the wound. And then I think the mentality, both in the functional space and the kind of conventional GI space, is just like, oh, this is really hard to treat. It relapses all the time. Like,
mhm.
you'll just need rifaximin like once every couple of months indefinitely forever. Cool. It's like that probably means that you're doing a shitty job treating this then,
Yeah.
right? If you need the band-aid all the time, that probably means that your treatment is incomplete or otherwise lacking. So I'm glad that you saw the writing on the wall pretty early on and you didn't progress because I've met plenty of people who have done rifaximin 10 times and it keeps coming back and it takes them that long to kind of put two and two together and look for other answers.
Mhm. Yeah. And, you know, after that, I saw an ad for Fodzyme, and that actually did help me get off the low FODMAP diet, which
Yep.
was really surprising that it worked that well. And then my goal after that became, you know, not just live a normal life, but and well, I guess how normal is it if you're having to like shake powder on your meals, like
Yes.
especially in front of people, like it's kind of weird, but from there it became Cure SIBO, and it took me 6 months of just researching the internet. Um, and I was about to go on the like 6 week liquid diet
Oh,
last
yeah. Oh God.
last Jan last January. I was so desperate, so exhausted. And then I
Yeah.
stumbled on one of your videos, and you were like
Thank
talking
goodness.
about the opposite things of everyone else. And I was like, and so my test, I remember there was like all this SIBO fear around don't take probiotics because you're going to add more bacteria to the too much
Gosh.
bacteria. And you're like, kind of screw that. Like, take it, see what happens. And, you know, immune modulation and stuff. I'm like, okay. So I went into my kitchen and like took a probiotic. And then I came down with like a fever, like within like 2 hours.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, okay, she definitely knows what she's talking about. Like, let me do everything I can to try to work with you. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Your immune system was doing stuff. That's for sure. And that's
yeah.
and like, it's not to say that's intrinsically a bad thing, but
Mhm.
it could be really scary and really disconcerting if you don't know what to expect and you're trying probiotics. And other SIBO experts who are very well known and well respected are telling you that probiotics feed the SIBO or increase the SIBO. When again, the actual research is the complete total opposite. The only study I've seen that indicated that probiotics were not an effective treatment for SIBO, there was one study, and basically they were like, meh, it didn't hurt the people, but it wasn't really good either. But they only gave the probiotic for 2 weeks. It's like,
Mm.
well, that's kind of a crappy design for the study. If they'd given it for a month or month and a half or 2 months, it probably would have been more favorable, but they just didn't do it for very long. But that's the only even close to negative study that I've seen on this topic, and I've looked. Um, anyway, let me skim some of the comments once again. Um, but I'll kind of skim real quick. Um, I might have to reply to some of these guys because some of them are more for me. So, like, somebody asked about antivinculin antibodies. Yeah, I've worked with that plenty of times. Highest dose of HCl. All right, I'm not seeing anything for the folks here, and I want to be mindful of their time. So, I'm just gonna keep rolling on. But if you have questions for these guys, feel free. If you have questions for me, I'll go back through and I'll answer questions after the recording is done, a little bit later on this evening, probably. But thank you, Linz and Allie, so patiently waiting as the last in the conga line for the moment. But come on, take the stage. Tell us a little bit about your story. What were you dealing with way back yonder?
Yeah, way back yonder. It's true. This is kind of like, well, I have to look into the past, which is this is I'm really grateful to be here and get the chance to reflect on some of this stuff because it's helping me too. And I hope that some of this resonates for anyone who's watching. But so for me, I really relate to the bits about, oh, well, I had all these symptoms, but I just was managing it and kind of living with it for a while. And then I started the whole, trying everything because my symptoms um, turned into a downward spiral, like you talk about in some places in the program. I started with having, the typical GI symptoms of like diarrhea, constipation. I actually had such bad constipation on more than one occasion that was like painful, and I got concerned, and I ended up going to urgent care because people were like, "Oh, it could be appendicitis."
Yeah.
And that's what the urgent care wanted to do was send me to the hospital and go get, x-rays and stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, and that's like that feeling of hopelessness where it's like, I don't want to do, I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's not my appendix. I'm pretty sure I'm just really constipated because I've been dealing with this and I know what this pain is, but it's really intense and I don't know how to make it better. And so but the other big one, as people have mentioned, the gas and the bloating. Um, the bloating for me was like one of the biggest issues because like symptoms that caused me pain and discomfort, like that was one thing, but the bloating, people can see that, and especially for those of us who work in a capacity of healing or health. I've been working as an esthetician for years and seeing clients and I'm like, talking to them about their skin and their health, but I look puffy and bloated. It's like,
You want to look the part a little bit,
yeah,
which
well,
is
and it
reasonable.
also, well, and whether or not anybody else realizes it, it's just the questioning of my own health. It makes me think that, like, you know, uh, take my own advice type of thing. Or
Yeah.
if I can't help myself, then how can I help anybody else? Like, even though I'm not a nutritionist or anything. But when I started looking into root causes in the early parts of your program, really looking at it, I realized that eating eating disorder or disordered eating and orthorexia turned out to be like a big part of my root causes. Really, if I answered the question in one word, my root cause is like a perfect storm. Like I've had problems with sleep for a long time and stress, and I moved across the country and all this other stuff. But the one thing about the bloating is that, it's like, oh, I feel fat, I feel full all the time. And that was another one of my big symptoms was that like eating was a miserable experience for me because I already feel full. I don't want to put any more food in there. And if I do eat more, then I'm going to feel more bloated. And it's that indigestion, like you talk about the food sitting in your gut like a brick of lead, and I feel like I eat 4 bites and I'm full.
Yeah.
And then, how do you get enough nutrients when you can't eat enough? But part of the other deal was that, somehow in my crazy mind and of the stuff that I found online and, and the health crazes out there with my tendency for orthorexia, which if anyone doesn't know that term, it's like hyperfixation on, eating clean or eating healthy, and it comes in different forms. But for me, the bloating translated to like, oh, I need to lose weight because I'm fat. And
Mm.
so I was like restricting my diet more because of the symptoms, the GI symptoms, and then the bloating, like maybe if I eat less carbs, then I won't be so bloated or whatever. And um I did go to a naturopath who, at the first visit, said, oh, you probably have SIBO. And if you don't want to get testing for it, we can just treat presumptively and assume that you have it, and we'll find out how that goes. And then I didn't go back to that naturopath for another like 5 or 6 years, which I eventually did. And then he eventually did give me a SIBO breath test. It was a lactulose test, and it came back with methane dominant positive for SIBO, which is interesting now that I know more about that.
Yeah, those
But
lactulose tests, they're not so accurate, but that's a story for another day. I have YouTube videos about that already.
yeah, and so, but even before I did that, he was like, oh, you probably have SIBO. So doing my own research and stuff, took matters into my own hands, and I did go on a low FODMAP diet. And then my doctor told me about the Allison Seebecker um, SIBO specific diet, which is like the most restrictive
Yeah,
thing
the
out there.
combo.
And it's supposed to be just super temporary, but I ended up being on that restrictive diet for like over 2 years. And I was down to a point where I was like not eating anything. And I was bringing my food with me everywhere. I wouldn't eat anything that I didn't prepare, nothing that somebody else made, nothing at a restaurant, or I would go to a restaurant and be like, can I just have some lettuce, please? And just it was like miserable. And
Yeah,
and
that's no
then
way to
it
live a life.
no, and it turns into this feeling of like this I'm terminally, like I'm a lost cause. There's nothing that's going to fix this, and I just have to keep restricting myself more and more because it's obviously not working, so I obviously need to try harder. And it
It's
became this other level of stress besides just the
yeah.
physical stuff.
Oh yeah. Like I think anybody, by the time you find me, I can almost guarantee that your vagus nerve is fried to a damn crisp anyway, let alone like what you're describing. That's really, really stressful. And I find it interesting that you use the word terminal briefly, although you kind of like pivoted shortly after that, because in a weird way, in some way, it was kind of like you weren't living a life, which would be kind of synonymous with a death of sorts. So it's interesting that you chose that word, albeit briefly. But I it's funny how like after you work with a lot of people over the years, pardon me. I'm just coming off of being sick. By the way, I keep muting myself to cough and I never elaborate on that. I got a crud about a week ago and I'm still kind of have a little tickle in the throat. But it's funny, like the things that'll stand out in my memory about each of you as time goes on. So again, like I still remember the Mexican food thing for Nikki. I could see you 30 years from now, Nikki, and I'm still going to think of Mexican food when I see you. So it's funny, but Allie, I still remember you had one of the most, and I say this with love and understanding, one of the most scary, like, whoa, caloric deficits that I've seen in a while coming in. Like, I forget what it was, but again, it's that layer of, oh, I eat 3, 4 bites and I'm full and I physically don't have the room for the food because I'm so bloated and I have this like brick of lead in my gullet. I don't know if the disordered eating, I feel fat kind of piece, I don't know if that ever came out in the Q&As actually. That might be news to me, believe it or not. But it's like this entanglement of stuff. And then if I remember correctly, you were running like easily a 600 or 700 calorie deficit every day. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, it was about 700,
Yeah. Ooh.
which sounds crazy, but actually I was doing that intentionally, but like years ago, probably back to like 2010 when I first started this whole health kick of like I need to diet because it's good for you. And I was like on this like 1200 or 1400 calorie
Ooh.
meal plan thing, and I thought I was like doing something good, which is so funny because I had so much less knowledge back then. But yeah, when I started to say like terminal something, there's this phrase that I've had that gets tossed around that I've heard before that's like terminal uniqueness. And it's that bias or that experience of like, I'm the only one in the world who feels this way,
I
and
call it
whatever
I'm
it is.
special syndrome.
I'm special syndrome. Yeah, terminal uniqueness. Like nobody can understand because I just have this thing, and that no, but this is just my path, and I just have to
Yep. I'm going to
accept
be
my
stuck here
fate.
forever. There's no hope.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
it wasn't even like a soul crushing thing. After a while, it was just like, well, this is my life. But the problem is that wasn't motivating me to seek help. Like I went through different phases of like, I'm gonna figure this out. And then just like, well, I'm just gonna accept this and live it because and that's why I ended up on the restricted diets for so long, is because it was easier. Like it was easier to just look the other way and eat my little list of foods that were safe because like you said earlier, the low FODMAP diet, it does help with symptoms. Like it didn't resolve anything for sure, but it definitely improved my GI symptoms and my bloating and stuff. And so once I found like of all the things I had tried up until then, the restricted diet was the one thing that was getting me some kind of immediate relief. And then I just clung to that. And I was like, okay, this is my
Yeah.
fail safe now. And that's
Yeah.
how it happened, which unfortunately I think created that downward spiral where I was getting worse and worse because obviously I know now I didn't have the diversity of fiber and I didn't have enough calories and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So
You and your microbiome were both malnourished for quite a long time. So and see, this is the thing too, is like, okay, all of you, raise your hand if you felt stuck. Like, oh, I've tried everything or I've tried most of the things. Okay. All of these people felt stuck in some way, shape, or form. But there was some pretty major stuff that each of them could have addressed. Right. So like we heard some of this, but like Allie was running this huge calorie deficit. She and her microbiome were both malnourished, like clinically malnourished. And then there were some other things I know you mentioned, like stress and sleep and that sort of stuff. But it's interesting because I find a lot of people in this world feel stuck. They feel doomed. They think, I've tried everything. There's no hope for me. This is just my dealing of cards in life. But then when you get down to it, I find that 99.99999% of the time, the people who feel like they've tried everything actually have not tried everything. It's just maybe, again, maybe they've got the blinders on. They've got that I'm special syndrome going on, and they can't see their own stuff. And that's where like getting somebody's perspective, whether it be in a lecture format, like in FODMAP Freedom or my YouTube videos, and learning something that helps it like click in your brain. Sometimes that's the answer. Sometimes it's go into the Q&As. If I may pick, you guys should know me by now, but if I may pick on one of you just briefly, Nikki, another one that I'm never going to forget about you actually is really early on. I remember one of the earliest Q&As. It was like week 1 or week 2 Q&A. And I still vividly remember you, I think it was like an Instagram ad or a Facebook ad or something. And you came to the Q&A and you were like, do you think that CBD oil can heal leaky gut? And should I get CBD oil? I think I have leaky gut. I'm going to get the CBD oil. And I remember distinctly being like, no, like you probably don't need this like $80 bottle of CBD oil. And you were just, it was that like frantic, desperate energy, like I need to feel better right now. And this Instagram ad told me that the CBD oil can heal my leaky gut. And I think I have leaky gut. And I was just like, whoa, girl, we're not going to even talk about leaky gut until like week 7. And you're going to see why by the time we get there, but like chill out. But I'm also always going to remember you asking about CBD oil and does it heal leaky gut, and me telling you, no, man, I think you're good. Like, don't even worry about that. I'm pretty sure for the record that you bought the CBD oil anyway, just to throw you completely under the bus.
I did. And
Do it.
Full spectrum. I need to clarify.
Perfect.
Full spectrum CBD
Excellent.
oil, which I'm sure has many benefits and stuff. I don't think it
Sure.
helped me at all, and I didn't buy it anymore. But I mean, I did try for a while because, again, you will try anything for a while because you're like, I just need this to go away.
Yes. Well, there's that element. There's also this element of, and again, I'm putting all of you on the spot. So sorry, not sorry. I think also oftentimes the things that actually matter are a great deal more. So like sleep and stress and relationships and a job that's sucking the life out of us and like actually changing our nutrition, maybe in ways that we're not super open-minded to changing. Like the things that actually matter tend to be the things that we will avoid at all costs. So if somebody comes by and dangles this shiny carrot and says, or you could just take this pill, it's like, oh crap, I don't have to deal with my toxic marriage. I don't have to go to marriage counseling. I could just take CBD oil. Holy crap, sign me up. And it's like, it's such an easy way to skirt around the thing that actually matters. And people oftentimes will do literally anything to avoid the thing they want to avoid. I don't know if any of you guys have had that experience. I see it pretty often clinically though.
I see it all the time, and especially with people that I work with. And, just like you said, though, if you need to work on all those basics first. Now, I will say the CBD was going to be in conjunction with working on the other things. I have to have the
well, I mean, yeah, you didn't say I'm piecing out on FODMAP freedom. I'm just going to take the CBD instead. Yeah. So that's credit where credit is due.
Just wanted to know if it was one more thing that might help, but looking for something there. But no, yeah. I know, because that's one of the reasons you will only allow us to look at the program one lesson at a time. So we don't get ahead and ask all those questions.
I know you because I was you. I was convinced that I had the world's worst case of leaky gut. All my answers lied in leaky gut. Boom. Because that was like the hot, sexy thing in like 2010, around the time when my gut was squirrely. Everybody in the functional medicine sphere was talking leaky gut, this and that. So I was convinced. So yeah, if I had access to FODMAP freedom, all the 12 modules or 13 modules right out the gate, 100%, I guarantee I would have just skipped over all the other shit in the beginning, and I would have gone right to the leaky gut, and I would have taken the glutamine or the whatever, and then I would have been like, oh, it didn't work for me. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Of course it didn't work for you. You went out of order. You skipped over all the foundational stuff that actually matters. And then you jumped into the sexy thing that you were, sold in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, I designed it that way for a reason. And it inevitably, every single time we open enrollment, somebody asks or somebody gets pissy with me because they want all of the material right then and there. And I have to be the meanie pie who's like, no, that's just not how it works. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, there's a rhyme and a reason to this. Now, I will say this. I am perfectly willing to stay and chat for as long as you guys are, but I want to be mindful of your time, at least to some degree. So let's do a couple of questions and we'll go kind of round robin and sort of like what we did this time. I'm curious, this one's not related to FODMAP freedom at all, but if you could give advice to the 50 or so people that are watching live right now, and who knows how many people are going to watch later on. People who are feeling stuck, people who are feeling hopeless, they feel like they've tried everything, they're spinning their wheels. Maybe they found Band-Aids like rifaximin or low FODMAP that works. Maybe they haven't. Maybe they know their root cause. Maybe they don't. Like, do you have any advice that you might give to some of these people that are really struggling with their gut issues right now? Beyond like, I know that you guys are all alumni of FODMAP Freedom, but beyond just join FODMAP Freedom, duh. Do you have any advice for these people who are really struggling? Aga, can I have you go first? We'll go in the same order, just for consistency's sake.
Yes. Sorry if I'm turning into a ghost. I feel like I'm getting washed out here. My
Yeah, you're good.
lighting's not very good.
You're
Um,
illuminated like an angel. That's what it
yeah.
is.
Well, that's very sweet. Yeah, I think the most important thing is, well, there's a few different things, but trying to stay positive as much as possible and finding things that make you feel better in the moment. Obviously, I mean, that are healthy for you, right? There's things you can do that are
Yeah.
maybe not great for you that will make you feel temporarily better, but something that, like whether it's a hobby or spending time with somebody that you really love or, things like that. Listening to a good song, like it can be really that little, like just to get yourself out of the really negative cycle of thinking and hyperfixating on your problem. And the other part of that, which you talk about, but it's definitely not trying to fixate on fixing whatever you're doing by like Googling and searching for answers at all times, because you will inevitably make yourself crazy, even if you don't think you are.
Yeah.
I know I definitely did that. And even though I was aware that I was doing it, I was like, no, it kind of like the special syndrome thing. It's like, I'm unique. This is not affecting me. Like, yes, no, it's
Yeah.
affecting you. And the problem is, I mean, there's a pro and a con, right? Like the internet is a fabulous resource on one hand, and there's lots of great information, but at the same time, there's so much information that, I mean, you can have a different diagnosis every day,
Oh,
every
yeah.
hour, like I remember I would be like, oh, maybe it's this. And then I'd be like, a couple days later, I'd be like, no, maybe it's this, and it's, yeah,
And
you'll
even
drive
once you
yourself
land on a
crazy.
diagnosis or like a condition that you're on the hunt for, say SIBO,
Yeah,
then everybody and their brother has an opinion on that diagnosis or that symptom.
right. Yeah,
Right. So you're going to find like the pro vegan YouTube channel who says you just need to go vegan. And then you're going to find a carnivore person who's like, no, eat only steak.
oh my
And,
gosh.
and
Yes.
everything in between. The herbalist tells you to take herbs. The medical doctor tells you to take rifaximin. And it's
Mhm.
like, this is wildly inappropriate. But I'll share it anyway. One of my dad's favorite stupid sayings is opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one.
Yes, I love that saying.
I'm just like, it's dumb, but it's true, right? And
Yep, so
pardon me.
true.
I'm trying to cough when I'm not actually talking, but I'm failing at that right now. I will tell you too, they will let anybody have a YouTube channel. They'll let
Mhm.
anybody have a blog. They'll let anybody have an Instagram account. And I know because I have all of those. And it's not hard to set these things up. So we have a lot of information on the internet. And ironically, like each and every one of you came into my world because you were researching or, saw an Instagram ad or something like that, or you found my YouTube channel or my podcast. So I'm not knocking our ability to educate ourselves on the internet, but it's a really slippery slope and it can contribute to just feelings of dread and doom and, oh my God, what am I going to do? So be very choosy where you spend your time on the internet. And I think one of my personal things that I do is I try to follow mostly accounts that bring me joy. So like K-pop accounts, for example, and I just watch K-pop all day long, apparently. But I make a point to not follow a lot of like business stuff and healing stuff and things that could potentially add kind of a mental burden to my day. So yeah, I think very solid advice. I concur wholeheartedly. Alex, by the way, hello. We're going round robin, so we're gonna get to you just momentarily here. But Nikki, advice for somebody who's struggling with their tummy right now, feeling kind of doomed and hopeless, and like they've tried all the things and nothing's working. What advice might you offer those people?
Well, aside from obviously, this, but from working with you, because that's what I tell people a lot. But really, it's I would say the biggest thing is my opinion. 2 words: vagus nerve. That's pretty much it. Work on that vagus nerve. So and if people aren't really don't even have an idea what that really means, just the rest and relax, right? So don't just sit around and rest all day, but but work on the things that stimulate it. And that was one of the biggest things, again, from somebody who is a practitioner, someone who is constantly, teaching, yoga and all these other things, but it really wasn't my focus on the actual real stimulation of the vagus nerve and how that affects everything else, and how sleep affects that, and how that affects sleep, and how all of those then affect my gut.
All tangled.
Yeah, how it's all tangled up. So, there's been so many other things that I've implemented that have nothing to do with food at all. And it's all a part of my gut health, though. Like my vibration plate, I bounce on a, reformer or a rebounder, and I do I've gotten other types of things that I now teach and also do for myself that are, that are very, very helpful, but even just like the herbal teas and different things like that, and that's not, so much of it because I'm trying to target something diagnosable necessarily. I'm just trying to use those as tools to help really keep my immune system on par and to keep my nervous system down regulated,
Well, you're just trying to live a healthy life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it's a consciousness. It's a consciousness of being able to. And so I guess the bigger thing would be to say, don't assume there's my kids home. So don't assume that you have to have a pill and you have to have a specific program and you have to do things. So much of it really is just like, understand that so much of it has nothing to do with a program or or a pill or whatever, or a certain food, even eliminating certain foods.
A lot of it has nothing to do with the gut.
No,
too.
a lot of it has nothing to do with it.
A lot of the stuff that tones the vagus nerve feels like it has nothing to do with the gut, but I assure you it does. Like you just said, after this call, you're going to get Mexican food with your girlfriends, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That doesn't feel like a gut healing activity, but I assure you it is, because you're going to be so happy. You're going to be chit-chatting, and the conversation, the company, the yummy food, the whole experience is going to tone your vagus nerve. And then that's going to set you up for success for that meal and future meals. So I think it's just a matter of, I joke in the program, right? Like you're building your own Vegas. And I kind of reference Las Vegas in that regard. Little play on words. You can look forward to quips like this in FODMAP Freedom. But it's like you're building your own Vegas experience. You're trying to build a life that brings you joy and fulfillment and makes you smile and makes you laugh. And those things are going to tone your vagus nerve. And you don't necessarily need like the essential oil for the vagus nerve. Yes, that exists, by the way. And like a supplement for your vagus nerve or gargling or whatever it might be. Like we need to build a life that's actually conducive to good vagal tone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It really is, to me, it was so much about, just stop, be still for a little bit, and then understand that it's not, that so much of it has nothing to do at all with the food. It really doesn't. The food, the end thing that you want to be able to enjoy, and you want to feel good, but don't discount. I think that's the bigger thing. When I meet people right now, like if I just met a person I didn't know and they were talking about their gut and they had problems, I think that's the first thing I do tell them. I'm like, gosh, how's your sleep? How you feeling? Do you do things you enjoy? How's your stress? It's like
whole person.
Yeah.
Right? We can't just suck out the gut and hyper focus on that and then think that that's going to work. Like the gut is connected to everything else. And what's interesting on the topic of vagal tone and like stress management and sleep and this kind of stuff. Sometimes I sneak into the Facebook groups and I poke around and I look for inspiration for videos and I look to see, okay, is there a common thread? Like what are people talking about the most? Is there a recurring question that keeps coming up? And like, what kind of YouTube video can I create out of the confusion or the conversations in these groups? And I'll do it very sporadically. I'll kind of pop into those groups. And recently I had to chuckle because I saw somebody shared I think it was an Instagram post. I believe it was from Gemelli Biotech, which is the company that does Trio Smart and IBS Smart and those kind of tests. And they're affiliated with Dr. Pimentel. And they had posted something that was like, if somebody tells you to take a vacation or take an antidepressant for your SIBO, that is outdated 20-year-old research, and that's not how we treat SIBO anymore. And everybody was all rejoicing. And I laughed and I cried because I saw that and I was like, yeah, so translation, ignore your mental health, ignore your stress, ignore your fried, crispy vagus nerve, and just take rifaximin for the rest of your days, right? Like once a month, just take rifaximin, and that's all you need. And they'll just kick back and watch the money roll in from that prescription, I guess. But it's so asinine, and it frustrates me so much because, like, that's such an incorrect diss that it's based on 20-year-old research. How many papers did I show you guys in FODMAP Freedom that are all recent papers in the last couple of years indicating that vagal tone and gut-brain axis connection has a hell of a lot to do with IBS and SIBO? But, it's like when you have that degree of authority and clout, you can get away with saying preposterous things. Another one that Pimentel drives me bonkers with is he's one of the ones that keeps saying that probiotics make SIBO worse and you can't take probiotics because it's more bacteria on top of bacteria. And I'm like tearing my hair out every time he says that. And anyway, I'm not going to get on a tangent about how I feel about other professionals. That's not what this is for. Linz, get me off this tangent, please, for love of God. Advice for people who are struggling.
Yeah. Piggybacking on everything else everyone is saying, I think for me, about, having faith, like I searched the whole internet for like 2 years trying to find one example of a person who's been cured. And Nikki, you were the only person I had ever seen. So it's like, clearly you're the most credible too. And the other thing is, like, it's not necessarily like FODMAP Freedom has any special secrets that you're not sharing on the channel. Like, just to clear the air there. It was really just mostly the right order to do things. And it's not really like one magic thing to do. It's like the basics of health. But yeah, it's having that faith and seeing, like, we're all proof here of people that are living like probably much more normal lives and not really, like, I don't consider myself to have IBS anymore. I'm able to eat gluten for the first time ever. I don't know if I really want to continue to, but I can. I accidentally found out I can. But yeah, it's just like implementing making all these little causes. Like, I can't really say it was one thing that I did that was like, that's the magic answer. Like, the blinders was one thing and ignore my whole health, my whole life, right? So yeah,
CBD
like
oil didn't cure you,
right?
Pick on poor Nikki again.
Yeah, so
throwing you right under the bus, Nikki. But seriously, I think that when you get down to real stories from real people who have actually legitimately healed their gut and moved on with their life, I don't think I've heard a single version of that story where it is just like, oh, I found this one probiotic or this one prokinetic or this one pill. That was it. That I was farting into the rainbows for the rest of my life. Hooray for me. It's like, it's usually a pie chart, right? It's like 5% from this piece, 10% from this piece. And maybe there's a big chunk that's like 18% of your pie chart. And by all means, you chase after that thing more aggressively and you go after that first. But it's usually this mishmash of a bunch of different things. It's not just one holy grail, silver bullet kind of thing. But yeah, being diligent in your pursuit of that and having kind of the perspective and learning to listen to your body again. I think that those will help you along the way as you're trying to figure out your pie chart. Certainly. Allie, look, this is getting progressively harder because I feel like, Aga, you had it easy. You could pick anything. You could pick any low-hanging fruit if you wanted to, but then each person that passes is like, oh crap, I have to say something new. I mean, you don't actually, you don't. You could just totally repeat everything if you want to reiterate something. But Allie, you are challenged now with going next after the other three have already shared. And then Alex is going to get the really hard job because he gets to be last in the conga line for this question. That's all right. You're up for the challenge, my friend. You can do it.
Yeah, well, joke's on you. I have notes here and I already wrote mine down. So I'm trying to be succinct and nobody said mine. So the main thing that I would say for anyone that's like on this journey, do the band-aids, but don't stop at the band-aids. Nikki, I really love that you always told us like there's a cheater pumpkin eater way to like address the symptoms while you're struggling now because it's going to take a longer time to like work it out in the background. And so it's not to say that those band-aids are bad and we should avoid them. It's just that we have to recognize it as a temporary support to address the symptoms while we're there. Exactly. And so I think that was my pitfall, was going, oh, I have this restrictive diet, it's going to help with my symptoms, and now all I'm gonna do. That's the end. I'm gonna
Yeah.
just continue that forever. And so it's like, it's not to say that it was a bad idea in the first place. It just, I shouldn't have stayed there. So
Yeah.
my huge advice is don't stop at the band-aids. And if you're gonna do stuff like that, um, I wish that I knew more looking back, like instead of doing antimicrobials and the elemental diet, which I did, which was very extreme, and I did 21 days.
And you were
And
already running a caloric deficit. Whoever
yeah,
prescribed you the elemental diet had no business doing that because you were already eating an insufficient amount of food. And then you
yeah,
further starved yourself.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So, so that leads to my last little advice thing, but which is, I was gonna say, instead of doing like antimicrobials and the elemental diet and whatever methods of killing off SIBO, try prokinetics instead. Because for me, I didn't like my doctor had mentioned that before, but the ones that he tried me on weren't effective, and I didn't really know what it was. He never taught me what the purpose of it was or what they really were, and I've learned that now from you. So I wish that I would have started there, like in, in my symptom chasing, which like instead of antimicrobials, let me just go straight to the prokinetics and try to
Yeah.
work things that way while I'm, while I'm doing this. And then the other thing that I was going to say is, um, oh, what was it? Something about, reintroduce foods, because this has to be my piece of the pie chart to represent, which is for those who are like on the low FODMAP or restrictive diet. Find a way to get the diversity in your diet, whatever it takes, even if it's like little bits, and even if you can't reintroduce everything, but just find those things that you have cut out unnecessarily that you can bring back in. And it's a lot of work, but I'm so glad that you encouraged us to do that, because I was like, any inkling that something was bothering me, and I cut it out, and I never experimented again because it was easier to just call it no.
Yeah.
And then when you said like reintroduce foods, I was like, oh my God, what do I do? But I was like, okay, let me try the things that I'm not totally sure that bother me, but they might, but let me give it another shot. And then really quickly, I was able to add a few things back in that were just maybe question marks and not like a hard no
Yeah.
for me. And so I definitely would recommend anyone who's on that journey of cutting foods out, like bring the foods back in as soon as you can, because it will just keep spiraling otherwise.
And you bring up an interesting point. Not exactly, but this sparked in my brain. Um, Let me know if you felt this way. I think that oftentimes, if people notice a correlation between eating a food and that food eliciting a symptom, so let's say bloating, for example, I think the automatic assumption is that that food is bad for you, or that food is bad or inflammatory somehow, or that it's causing disease or causing some disease or inflammatory process. And that's not necessarily the case. Like, I've seen people who get really, really bad symptoms and they feel like hot garbage when they eat meat, but then we get them on betaine HCl, boost their stomach acid, and they could eat the meat with absolutely no problem, absolutely no symptom. And actually, like, oftentimes these are the people who are really protein deficient or iron deficient, and they need the meat to boost some nutrient. But I think that that's part of it, is like, when you do start to notice these correlations with foods eliciting symptoms, it I think sometimes it almost feels like, oh my God, it would be dangerous or irresponsible to not cut out that food because it's harming me somehow. I don't know. Like, Allie, did you kind of feel like that was part of what was going on mentally as you were cutting out foods?
Yeah, totally. And like I'm a science geek, so I'm the first person to understand like the difference between correlation and causation. But when I was on this like, not only physically inflamed but like mentally inflamed part of my journey, where I was like just afraid of anything that could cause my symptoms, that was my formula, was like, if it caused symptoms, I'm gonna get rid of it. And I didn't, like, I didn't really care whether or not it was actually hurting me or it was actually bad or anything. Like, I was just trying so hard to eliminate symptoms, because that was kind of what I was reduced to. That was all I knew how to do at the time. And so, probably like, what is it, despite your own faith or something?
Oh yeah, cut your nose off to spite your face.
That, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Definitely.
We have so many little sayings and witticisms that we're busting out in this panel.
It helps.
But yeah, I think you said that well, and so impressed that you had a little notepad even. Oh my gosh, you little A+ student, you. That was awesome. Alex, do you have a notepad, or are you a slacker?
Oh, I'm a slacker. I came in unprepared. So I gotta follow. So I gotta follow from the prepared person to end it. Come on.
And you came in late. That's all right.
Yeah,
But no, so you missed the beginning. We just went around the table and kind of like shared a little bit of the story of like share as much as you feel comfortable with, like what
yeah.
were you dealing with, like were you at? And then the question that everybody just answered, you could do both at the same time here. The question was, do you have any advice for people who are struggling with their gut health? They feel stuck. They feel like I've tried everything else. I'm doomed. I'm hopeless. I'm never going to get rid of this. Like, do you have any advice for people who are feeling really stuck right now?
Oh,
But
yeah.
introduce yourself first, by all means.
Well, I'm Alex, everybody. I was in the same program as Lindsay. So good to see you, Lindsay. Good to see you. Hopefully sounds like everything's going great. Yeah, so my story is just, I'll kind of briefly synopsis it like a minute. So I was like back in August last year, I got a bad viral infection. It was just influenza B. That's what it ended up being. Right after that, like my gut was never the same. I don't know if it attacked my GI tract or the nerves in my GI tract or something, but it just slowed down. And within a couple of weeks, I started having a lot of GI symptoms, a lot of bloating, couldn't move food, got really constipated, and it just kind of fell off the edge. So I just never felt right for months and months. So I went looking for answers and IBSs, and I went to my doctors, and I work in the medical field too. So I was all Western medicine, like everything I knew. I was like, okay, I'll go see my doctor and figure out what's going on. And they led me down a horrible path. And then I got restrictive, and, fast forward months and months later, I was pretty much eating the same 6 foods a day over and over again. And it was working, right? Like the Band-Aid was working enough to get me to where I needed to go. And then I just completely, I don't know, one day it just fell off the wagon, and I was so inflamed. I had such a microbial dysbiosis going on. Looking back, that's what I see, because I was so restrictive. I probably had not a good bug left in there. It was probably just mostly bad bugs. And I found FODMAP freedom. And luckily at that time, I was already signed up, but I just was really bad. It was to the point where I couldn't barely even work. I mean, I was so bloated and in so much pain, and it was so hard to focus at work. And I was like this far away from going on short-term disability.
I remember that.
Because I was like, I could barely get out of bed. It was really awful. I lost like 35 pounds. I'm 210, like 6-foot guy normally, and I was down to like almost 170 pounds within a span of 6 months. So I dropped off like real fast. And I was always been healthy. I always ran. I always did what I needed to do and whatever. So anyway, that's my story to all. And then I found FODMAP freedom, and then the rainbows started coming out, and the light at the end of the tunnel started coming months later. Everything was great.
That's right. I gave you the secret pill that I only give students in FODMAP freedom, and I don't tell anybody else about. Right?
You have to sign up for that, and if you want to get the pill plus, you have to sign up for the Gut Guru.
That's
class.
right. That's right. Yeah, pill plus. But yeah, I think that your journey, if I remember it correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but your journey was similar to what some of the others shared, in the sense that there wasn't necessarily a single magic bullet for you. It was an accumulation of several things. So I remember you were under eating pretty profoundly as well. You and Allie could compete in a way. I think that your caloric deficit was probably on par with Allie's. And to your point, the Band-Aid or the crutch or whatever you want to call it worked to a certain degree, but the Band-Aids don't heal you. That's the thing.
No,
and
the Band-Aids can just make it worse.
They could mitigate symptoms for a short period of time, but they're not going to actually heal what ails you. And I remember too, this surprised me. You actually didn't fess this up until after you were through the program. So it was a while later that you actually hopped on one of the Q&As with, I think it must have been the most recent class. And you shared with one of the students that, man, you've got to stop Googling. Dr. D tells you to stop Googling, and you've got to do it. And later on, I reached back out and I was like, Alex, were you just like backing me up in there? Or were you actually a chronic Googler? And you were like, oh, I was the worst chronic Googler. And that was absolutely making me feel worse. So you want to elaborate on that one? I know we've touched on that already.
Yeah, I would say, like, as far as FODMAP freedom goes, like, you're going to spend, I'm sure people before they even found you have probably spent a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of researching things. And your example of putting whipped cream on top of garbage is like the perfect example. It's like you find all that garbage and then you just put a little whipped cream on top of it. It is what it is. Like, and you have to rethink your foundation. And what I think FODMAP freedom did for me is that it took me out of all that garbage and it brought me into a world of like, okay, let me put this A, B, C, D, E, F, G, what to do. And I got off all those social media accounts I was on. I stopped looking online. I stopped researching. My fiance was like, no, you're done. Like, you can't look on the computer anymore. Like, just pay attention to class and we're going to go from there. Like, she was very much driving that home with me. And it took and it was a little bit of a transition, but I would say get off the internet, stop looking at these things. Like, if you
can watch the rest of this video to be clear, like, don't hop off yet.
don't hop off. Wait.
But the general internet is a garbage truck.
General garbage truck, and you got to get off the garbage truck and you got to start putting this stuff into multifactorial reasons, and you really have to individualize those reasons why this could be happening to you. And that's what I think FODMAP freedom did really well. It kind of just got rid of that garbage and started replacing those building blocks, right? Build the foundation slow and start building the house slowly, and eventually you'll have a nice constructed house. And I think that's what it did for me. And I was able to really carry on. And now, like, where I was eating 6 foods a day, I'm now eating more fruits and vegetables in an average day, and my fiber intake is out the yin yang. I mean, Nikki, we would always, like, even after the program, I'd message you and be like, hey, I eat like 40 grams of fiber today. Whoa! And you text me back, you eat like a gargantuan amount that I could probably never handle. And, it was like, it was really funny. But,
we had fun comparing notes on Chronometer. We would text back and forth. There was one day, and actually this segues into something I want to share that's not really related to the conversation, but it might be worthwhile for somebody anyway. Remember, I texted you at one point a screen capture of my Chronometer, and I was like, wow, this is a lot even for me. And I got like 200% of my daily value for fiber that day. And I was like, whoa. But it's because I had gotten a bag of avocados at Costco. So I had like 6 avocados that ripened all on the same day. And if you know anything about avocados, you have to use them right then and there. There's no like, oh, I'll just wait. So had to use the avocados right away, made this massive pile of guacamole. And then my daughter didn't want to eat any, and my husband had like a modest portion. So I found myself eating all of this guacamole. I probably had 3 or 4 avocados worth of guacamole in one sitting. And it was marvelous. And I was bragging about my Chronometer because, again, all of those avocados got me a lot of points in Chronometer that day. But what's interesting is I was so bloated after that. And we were watching a movie. It was family movie night. And I was sitting there on the couch and I was like, ooh, my tummy's like a little bit cranky, a little bit tender, and a little bit bloated. Oh, but then I was like, well, yeah, you dope. You ate 4 avocados worth of guacamole. No normal human being would ever do that. It's perfectly reasonable that your stomach is going to be a little bit weirded out when you eat that much guacamole. And I just, and so I released it. Like, I was able to, what's the word? Not disconnect. I was unattached from that, right? Like, I was able to go, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Whatever, it'll pass. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to stress over it. I watched the movie, and, by the end of the movie, or maybe the next day or whatever it might have been, I felt normal and I was fine. But that's a different story versus when we get into this really fearful, anxious, like even OCD-ish kind of space where it's like any little symptom, you latch onto it, you become hypervigilant, and you start obsessing over it. And you think, oh my God, I have to treat this.
Right.
It's so hard to pull people out of that like medically induced PTSD kind of headspace. But that's, I think, a part of the journey for a lot of people too.
It's really hard in the beginning too, because when I was so inflamed and just so everything hurt to eat, and every little step that I take, it was like looking at the stairs, and you have to climb 200 flights of stairs, right? Like, each week you might only go up a stair or 2. And then you might take another 2 stairs in the next week. And then you're going to have symptoms. I mean, you're going to have these tummies, especially initially, like, especially reintroducing foods and things, like, you're going to expect symptoms, right? But don't it is going to pass. It is going to get better with time, and you just got to push through it. And I think the biggest thing is not focusing on those symptoms that have knocked you to the floor so many times, and just focusing on, okay, I'm going to build this diversity. Just like we talked about, like, once you get that gut diversity in, once you've hit that marker of good microbial diversity, things get a lot better. There was a point where, like, almost like a 1 week to the next, I was like, oh my God, I'm starting to build resiliency. And for me, that's a 4, 5, 6 months of time for me to reintroduce things have those symptoms a little bit and then get over it and then slowly start working those things in. And that's what I think FODMAP freedom really did well for me, is it's kind of get those things under control and then get it uninflamed and then Band-Aid slowly and then work back into things and start building that resiliency over time. And it took a long time. I mean, I was eating 1,700 calories. I should be eating 3,100 a day. And I was eating 16 to 1,700 a day, which is why I lost so much weight, just because I was so inflamed. So, you know, it'll take time. It just takes time. And you have to go at it slow. Just go at it slow. Catch up eventually.
Well, yeah, I think going at a pace that's reasonable, like you don't want to take somebody who's on strict low FODMAP and then give them 4 avocados worth of guacamole, right? So there does have to be a progression that makes sense for the individual. Like maybe you get a bit of symptomology, but not enough that it really knocks you on your ass tremendously. But it's like you're challenging it just enough day by day, week by week, month by month, that eventually, like you said, you're going to be climbing that staircase and you're going to be halfway there before you know it. And by the time you get there, you have so much more resiliency. You're so far away from that cliff edge that then it's like the progress starts to snowball in a positive way. And then, you know, you might start out introducing 1 food per week in the beginning, but maybe once you get the swing of it and you have that resiliency under your belt, maybe you're adding a new food every day, right? And you're just in a groove with it. But you've got to kind of push through the sucky part in the beginning to get to that magical place.
Yep. You got to embrace the suck while you get to the rainbows and magical unicorn land.
There we go. We should make t-shirts. Embrace the suck.
Embrace the suck.
And then whatever the rest of it was. And then you get to the unicorns and the rainbows. There is some truth to that statement though. Well, guys, so first of all, I want to say, just thank you all for being here. I know that, Nikki, you have a hot Mexican girl date to get to. So if anybody needs to hop off, I will take zero offense. I thank you tremendously for being here. And it was so good to see all of you. That being said, I would like to chat for just a little bit longer, if that's okay with all of you. Now, you know, so we got to hear stories and just general, like, what would you recommend to somebody who's feeling stuck? Now, if you'll indulge me for just a few moments, what if there's somebody watching right now and they're kind of thinking of FODMAP freedom, but they're like, I don't know. I don't know if like a program like this can really heal me. I need to work one-on-one with somebody, or, it's too expensive. I don't know. Or, I'll just wait until next time. Like if somebody's on the fence about joining FODMAP freedom, can you take a minute to share your experience going through the program? And like, I hope we know the answer by now, but was it worth it to you to do that? And did you feel like it was effective and it was a worthwhile thing to do? And Aga, you messed up my order of things because you logged off and logged on, but we're going to keep the same order and keep things fair. So Aga, you'll start off and then we'll revisit Nikki.
Sorry, I didn't want to mess you up. The cat is getting antsy over here.
Well, I hereby mandate you put the cat on camera if you can. Say what you want to say and then bring that cat on camera. You know I get a kick out of seeing all your pets.
Yeah, I might have to send you a picture. She's anyway, she's very particular.
As cats are.
Yes. Well, yes. So yeah, what I was actually going to say is, of course, I mean, yes, it was worth it. That's why I'm here. But I think the most important thing I would want somebody to know is that it's actually very helpful to do this program, and I found it more helpful than working one-on-one with several practitioners, because you get so much more information that is absolutely invaluable that I feel like other practitioners may also know or subscribe to. But like if you're just meeting with them once every 6 months or however many times, that was kind of at least like what I was doing, you just don't have enough time to go over everything. And so I actually really, really liked the structure of your class, and I wish a lot of people could take it because I think even if they don't have necessarily digestive issues, but if they have any kind of health issues, I think it could be so helpful, because we've kind of already touched on this, but it's just like general health and what you need to feel better.
Well, it's holistic, right? It's the whole body.
Yeah, right, exactly. So yeah, I actually think it's a really great format. I will say that you have to do a lot of self-study. So for somebody that's
you have to work your ass off. It's not an easy undertaking. I realized that you sign up for FODMAP freedom and I just basically like unleash the fire hydrant of of like, information coming at you.
Yes, which I
But
personally love. Like I
yeah,
thrive off of information, so I can see how some people could maybe get overwhelmed.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I
yeah,
think
it's good to be mentally prepared for that. So
right,
it's
yeah,
built by nerds for nerds. How about that? That could be my new slogan for the program.
100%. You should definitely add that in there. It's like if you're a
Right.
nerd, you might
Yeah.
really enjoy this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the program is awesome. And like I understand the one-on-one thing, but you get so much support within the program that like it's almost as if you were working one-on-one,
Yeah.
you
We
know?
we have so many Q&As, and it's weird too. I'm gonna share something that feels weird to say publicly, but I've said this privately many, many, many times, and probably even on the Q&As with you guys. I actually think FODMAP Freedom is more effective than my one-on-one work,
Yeah, I could see that.
which is bizarre to say that, but I think that there's also this element, and let me know if this was true for any of you. Um, I think that the vagus nerve, stress, sleep, nervous system health, building a life that brings you joy, slowing down and experiencing your damn food, getting over your food fears, like a lot of the stress or stress related stuff is hugely foundational for healing this kind of stuff. But I have found over the years that even if I think I've executed the delivery perfectly and I'm being super down to earth and chill and not accusey, when I bring up the idea of stress or mental health being involved whatsoever with somebody's gut health, when it's in a one-on-one format, it's really easy for people to get defensive about that.
Mhm.
And again, I've worked on my delivery. I think I'm a pretty chill, down to earth person. I'm not a meaty pie, and I'm not like, you're freaking stressed. You need to work on it. Like I'm good about my delivery, but I have not found a way to get around that quirk with one-on-one where it's one person telling the other person, you need to work on stress. And then the other person's like, ugh. Versus if I can educate you about the effects of stress or the vagus nerve or the gut brain axis, and it's more in like a neutral format in the lesson, and then you have a chance to digest it, marinate on it a little bit, and then you could come to the Q&As and we could talk about it, and you could hear other people's experiences and other people's aha moments. Like, I just think that that format is a much more effective delivery method for information. And it's information I could share one-on-one with somebody, or I could share in FODMAP Freedom, but I find that this delivery is even more effective than my one-on-one work. And honestly, I don't feel the need to do a lot of fancy schmancy testing with private patients or FODMAP Freedom students. So that's kind of nice too, that we could do a lot of this without doing really any sort of testing, or hardly any, I should say. But yeah, I actually think that FODMAP Freedom is the flagship thing that I offer at this point, over and above my one-on-one work, which is really peculiar to say.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I mean, I really, I mean, and I've seen great practitioners, and I think all of them have helped me to a certain extent for sure. But it was something about just like, yeah, and even like it's like we've already touched on, like there's not like some secret thing that you're, dispelling to people, but it's just the format and the fact that you have this like guidance and outline. Oh, there we got is that a cat?
I was going to
Can't
say, I'm
tell.
not laughing at you, Aga, but I love Liz's cat so much, and we're
So
going to have
cute.
to find out that cat's name as soon as we get Liz back on. But don't worry, Nikki, I know you're next. But
Yeah,
I'm going to
sorry.
figure it
I'm
along.
just like beating a dead horse. I just really
No, you're
believe
good.
in
You're
it. That's why I'm here. I just
you're
think it's so
you're
awesome because
you're good.
I haven't encountered anybody else that has created such a good program. And I know there's like hundreds of programs online and everything, but it's so thorough, and it finds a great balance of like self-study while also having like that support, which is
Yeah,
so important. So
that's what
that's
we're
all I'm
going
gonna
for.
say.
That's the goal. Glad it's being achieved, at least per the folks here on the screen today. Well, thank you, Aga. Nikki, thoughts for somebody who might be on the fence about the FODMAP Freedom experience, whether or not it's for them, whether or not it's going to work?
Yeah. So, well, I'd say first off, if you're a person that just wants someone to tell you, go do this, it's not going to be the right program. Okay. That being said, because, I mean, like you said before, like I said, it's really self-exploration. But the thing that I found is that in this 3-month course, it is like a 3-month, it's like a college course. You're getting educated. You're not, you're not just being given some videos to watch and then, go figure it out or whatever. We're given science to back it. You're breaking down the science that we might not be otherwise be able to understand, or we're not going to go do all that research necessarily, in all the medical journals and everything, and you're on top of that, but you're going to be able to explain it too. And now there's like, I walk away, and when I start talking to people about gut health, their eyes probably glaze over, but but I feel like, wow, I just like, I can spew all this, awesome science stuff because there was an education involved. Like there really was an actual education in what is going on, in your body in general, but then in gut health, especially. And understanding what all of this is. We live in these bodies and most of us don't even know. We couldn't even point to where our stomach is. I'm not kidding. Like, where's
the anatomical stomach, like the organ, not the organ stomach.
Not the tummy, but where's your anatomical stomach? Where is it located? Where is your, things like that. But, understanding how the actual digestive tract actually works and when it, it starts and, starts the moment you put something in your mouth, before you put something in your mouth, because that's right. Part of the dominoes. And
that's right.
But really it's, I feel like there's a lot of education and that's very helpful. Being in this collective, getting information from other people and them having symptoms or other issues that maybe you don't think pertain to you at all, but maybe they're, like you said, you get an aha out of what they have going on. And because of the response or answers that you're able to give them, or, conversations that are being had. So you get this great collective of information. And then additionally, with that education, whenever you're an alumni, like I am, from what, 2021?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. You were spring of 21.
Because of after being an alumni there, now, like, I mean, it's not a forever one and done. Like you said, you're going to constantly be working on things because we're living human beings.
Yeah.
We're constantly have things that throw us off or
on a very unpredictable planet.
Oh God. Yeah. And there's times whenever things have gone literally south in my body. But I don't, like, even this week, I've had some reoccurrences of that pain I haven't had in 2 years, but I wasn't freaked out about it. I didn't go, oh my God, I've got to start all over and I need to treat this. What I did do though, was say, oh, is my sleep where it should be? Am I treating myself the way I should in that regard? Am I, managing stress? Am I doing all the basics? And, I bought a prokinetic. I haven't bought a prokinetic in 2 years. Because I had, and I was like, that's something that really helps. So let's work on motility. Yep. So I was able to go back afterwards and then reevaluate for myself. And then if I need help, I know I can reach out to you too.
Yeah.
I know I can send you a message and
or you can hop on the Q&As. Like, alumni are always welcome on the Q&As for that matter too.
Right.
But I think that's a really big point that you made, which is the education component of it, because it's like we have to pilot this ship for the duration of our lives. Nobody gives us an instruction manual. We're just out here trying to figure it out. And in a really weird way, I feel like FODMAP Freedom has become that user's manual in a lot, because we cover a lot of things even outside the gut. But my big thing is that I don't ever want you guys to feel dependent on me. Like, I want you to have the knowledge and the tools so that when the shit hits the fan again, because again, you're living, you're breathing, pardon me, still recovering from the crud. But when the shit eventually hits the fan and something loops up on the radar for you, you don't go into that spiral of, oh my God, I'm back at square one. The SIBO's back. What do? I have to kill it. You're like, okay, well, let me check in with the things that I know have worked before. Are my foundational pieces in place? Like, what do I think is going on? Like, you're going to have the knowledge and the tools that you can tackle things on your own for the most part. And then, if you need my support, for those special occasions where you really can't figure it out, then you're welcome to pop on a Q&A or shoot us an email or something, and we'll try to support you the best we can. But I think that's much different versus I am the authority figure and I have figured it out and you need my special tests, the GI map that only I can order for you and you cannot get anywhere else. And you need me and my special brain to interpret that test for you. And then you need me and my special professional grade branded products so that you can cure it. Because you can't, no Joe Schmo can just order pure encapsulations on their own. You need me and my link and my dispensary to order the stuff. And it's like, it's such a weird world where people could feel trapped and dependent on providers. And I really don't like that. I would rather you have an understanding of your body and an understanding of how the human body works so that you can figure most of the stuff out on your own and then come to me only as needed.
Well, I will say most likely none of the people I'm going to go have dinner with are ever going to see this. So I'm going to talk about them for half a second. I will sit there at dinner and I will listen to all of them talk about every one of their ailments, and every one of them has an ailment. They will talk about all their ailments. We're all like either close to 50 or over 50, not just including myself. So they got ailments, they got stuff. And so whenever, and the things that they have, they go, this is what I hear most often is, well, my doctor put me on. That phrase, my doctor put me on, or my doctor wants me to. And then I always look at them and go, what do you want to do?
But the authority figure told me what to do.
Yeah. They're like, well, my doctor put me on it and I don't like it. And I'm like, well, then do something different. But, so that is the difference, right? So they're not, nobody's, you're like, you don't ever tell somebody, just, you have to do this, it's like, here's my opinion and here's what you have going on.
Your
and
journey, man.
Yeah. Just, why don't we look at this and then come to an agreement together, or whatever, and see what works. And, and that's really what it is. And it's a very good educational experience, and also just gives you ease later on, is what I would say. I really feel like it gives me ease later on, also to just stop, go back to square one, and see what, if what I have is like kind of a chronic issue, I'm having something that reoccurring chronically in a way that, it was not temporary, like just a couple of days worth or whatever. Then I just go back to square one and I'm just like, okay, well, let me just see what's happening, and it's not forever, and let's work on it. And then if I still have a problem, then I might need to work, go deeper. But I just feel like it really gives me a better foundation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad to hear that, because that's very much the goal here. And again, it's not to say Band-Aids are bad, but like Band-Aid a little bit, but then have the bigger picture and have, again, the tools and the knowledge and the perspective to treat yourself holistically and kind of zoom out a bit. Kind of fits in. Well, thank you, Nikki. Liz, tell us about your cat first and foremost. Where did that precious angel go? What is their name? How old are they? Tell me all the things about the cat, and then we'll get into this stuff.
Well, yeah, my lifelong dream has always been to travel. And since I consider myself not having gut issues anymore, I've been constantly house sitting all around the US, staying and watching people's animals, and getting to travel for free.
Nice.
So I'm in LA watching Woody.
Woody.
And it's been amazing. So yeah, watching so many animals and traveling has been one of my goals. So yeah, and I agree.
Before I forget, I'm so sorry. This is completely unrelated to the topic at hand. There's a restaurant in downtown LA called Levant Bistro. Go there. It's all gluten-free. They actually, Levant Bistro, I think is what it's called. They had a place here in Raleigh. It was my favorite restaurant. The whole place is dedicated gluten-free and everything is so freaking good. So scrumptious. Okay. So yeah, go check that out. But anyway, continue. More important things, right? The cat, the restaurant.
Right. Yeah. Actually, this was one of my main concerns when we first did like the one-on-one call at the beginning. Was like, is working on one-on-one, is that really going to be as effective as a group program? And I'm so happy that I did FODMAP Freedom, because like everyone was saying, you taught us how to be gut health specialists. It wasn't us really coming to you like, please fix us. It's like we now we have the tools to deal with anything that comes up. And it was really like a science experiment, like, oh, it might be this. Okay, try that, or try this. It wasn't like, I did this one thing and it didn't work, so it's a scam. It's like,
I hope not.
It really, And I think a big shift was exactly what guys were talking about. We have this conditioning in the traditional medicine world of like, all the answers are outside of me, and a very reactive kind of approach to health. And this is a very proactive approach. You become the main protagonist of your health and your journey.
I think even in the field of nutrition, there's a lot of that. And I know Michael Pollan, who I've linked before in group calls and stuff. Michael Pollan has spoken about this idea of nutritionism and this idea that you normal people don't know how to eat. You need to know about vitamins and minerals and magical compounds that you can't see with the naked eye. And you need an expert to tell you what to eat. And you can't figure it out on your own. And it's like, I mean, I'll teach you about nutrition in FODMAP Freedom, but at the end of the day, a lot of it's kind of the unsexy, yeah, duh kind of stuff, right? Like, what's healthier, broccoli or a Pop-Tart? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out, but I'm also a big fan of not being overly strict with your diet, as you guys all know. But yeah, it's like this idea that you need the experts to tell you how to eat and how to prepare your food. And if you don't have an expert to guide you, you are hosed and you're never going to get the nutrition right. And there's some magical food that you have an allergy to, and you'll never know without the fancy $300 test or, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I think recurring theme is learning to listen to your body and learning like how to be a gut health expert in a way and how to be an expert in your own health and wellness. Like that's a big part of the journey, I think, or it should be.
Yeah, it was incredibly empowering. And, just even the struggle I had to go through to even like get here. And now I can encounter people and I can point them to you. And I'm like, hey, I'm literally like proof that, because I remember for so many years, I was like, there's gotta be some answer to this. Being told that this is incurable, you just have it for your whole life. It's like, no, I refuse to believe that.
Yeah.
And just that, gritting teeth determination, right? To just do everything. Like I went to every single Q&A, sometimes both twice a day. And I don't know how many hours that was, over 5 hours of Q&As a week or something. Like that's way more support than you'd even probably could even offer in a one-on-one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it was basically, yeah, like you said, this lifetime support, lifetime, like, and it was just like a no-brainer. And I'm like, and to be honest, money was really hard for me, but I just had to put my health first. And now I have the energy to actually go,
Yes.
Work on my career and everything. So
exactly,
that really had to become the priority.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that you're spot on in so many ways. And can I share something you were sharing before we started streaming on YouTube? You posted your story it was a Reddit thread, you said, and to your credit, you were trying to help people and say, hey, this is what worked for me. This was my journey. And you got kicked out of the Reddit forum. Holy crap,
Yes.
man. But
yeah,
you said that you have it on YouTube. You record a YouTube video. So I'll link it in the description of this video after we're done. I don't think I could do it now, but I'll do it later. But yeah, it's so bizarre, the terrain out there in the internet right now. I'm not the least bit surprised to hear that you got bumped off of that Reddit forum and people were closed-minded to that or got defensive about that. And it's the old, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Like you could put out this information and you could try to help people, and you did, to your credit. And if people are not ready to receive that message, there is nothing you can do to make that person ready. They have to go on their own journey and kind of get to that point themselves. But I forget how I got on that tangent. I just thought it was really funny that you got kicked off of a Reddit thread or off of a Reddit forum.
Yeah, banned from IBS.
Well, joke's on them because you don't have IBS anymore, so you don't need the forum.
Yeah, but it just showed how much suffering there is out there. And at first I felt defensive, but then very quickly I was like, this is just a huge symptom of like the hopelessness everyone feels. Like even the one person who was commenting that they are like, they're free of it. It's like, oh, well, they still have this really restricted diet and they're taking all this stuff. Like, I maybe take a prokinetic like once a week if I want to just pep things up, but I'm eating everything. I have no food restrictions. Like I could start having dairy again. I can have gluten. Like
you're traveling,
normal. I'm
babysitting adorable cats. Yeah, you're just living life now.
Normal for the first time in my life. So it's just really changed my life.
Well, I'm glad. Oh my gosh. Um, well, thank you for sharing that and for introducing us to that precious kitty that you're babysitting right now. Allie, you're going to be hard pressed to follow this up because I don't think you have a cat that you could bring on camera, and that's very important to me. But do your best. Do what you want. Do you have a cat? Shut up. You do not. Oh, you were reaching off camera. I got very excited. I thought you were going to grab a cat. Okay.
I have a squishmallow.
Okay, well, that's a solid runner-up. I'll take it. Partial credit.
If anyone hasn't experienced the epic softness of Squishmallows, I highly recommend. Like, it's just
Oh, I have an 8-year-old. We have
I don't
several.
have any pets. Yeah, you do. I wish I had pets because, they're amazing and I love animals, but for various lifestyle reasons, I can't have pets. So we have stuffed animals. Like, and someone found out this, and many people found out this, and now they're like accumulating throughout the house. But they make me happy. So I have
And
my
that's
pets
toning your vagus nerve.
that I can pet. Yeah, exactly.
There you
So,
go.
and now they're more socially acceptable, which is also cool.
Yes.
But so I do. I have my notes because I want to stay on topic, and I still have more to say about if someone's on the fence about FODMAP freedom and they're considering it. The first thing that came to mind is it is a commitment. But it is the commitment that I already was trying to make to myself and couldn't do without this support, and that anybody, anyone who's already on the fence about doing something like this or considering something like this, you've probably already tried to help yourself and you haven't been able to, and that's why you're here. And so for me, it was like, okay, there's cost involved financially and like mental and emotional energy and my time to do this, but it's actually that's actually the mechanism that got me results. And so the way that I see it is that the FODMAP Freedom Program gave me all of the hand holding and structure that I needed and accountability that I needed in the group support environment, but with all of the agency and freedom to do it how I wanted to do it. And it's so crazy because those are two things that I had a hard time finding with a traditional one-on-one provider relationship, because for one, like you said, like the provider doesn't have time to teach me all this stuff. They just have time to like take my vitals, do a quick intake, and then tell me what supplement to take or whatever. And then they're like, next. And then I'm left being like, okay, bye. I'm on my own now. And to do whatever crazy things my brain was gonna do with, the desperation that I had. So for me, it was like I needed that step by step. Oh, Lynn says gotta run. All right.
Yeah.
We'll hop back on if it's still
Alex
live.
had a high FODMAP dinner date too, so he dropped off a little bit ago too.
Well, maybe
Continue.
they'll come back. But yeah, so I needed the hand holding, but even more importantly, I'm a science geek, and so I needed the why. And that was the big thing that my providers could not give me when I was seeing a traditional, like a naturopath one-on-one. They would tell me like, okay, I recommend that you take these prokinetics, or I recommend this, and this is like the next step for you in your journey. But they couldn't tell me why. They couldn't tell me what it was doing for me. And so essentially I would fall flat on that, whether I tried it or not, because I didn't know why I was trying it. I didn't know what what it was supposed to be helping me with.
It was like you weren't bought in on whatever you were doing in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Like I wasn't committed to it, or I wasn't, sure of why, but I just did it because I was told to or whatever. And then if the first thing I tried didn't work, I would just stop and give up and be like, oh, well, prokinetics as a whole didn't work because these 2 or 3 that I tried didn't work, because that's what they gave me. But I didn't understand why it was that he was suggesting that, which is crazy because I mean, I heard about prokinetics long before this, and I'm talking about prokinetics right now, and I mentioned it before, but I'm not saying that's just that. Like there were so many things. I even had a naturopath years ago suggest taking betaine at HCl, but I didn't quite understand the mechanism, and I did it for a while and then I fell off, and it's like I needed to know exactly how this works so that I could understand the science and see like, well, is it helping me? I don't know. There's like 8 million symptoms going on in my body at any moment, or like input, sensory experiences. I can't pinpoint like, oh yes, it helped me with this one part of my gut symptom. But once you
Yeah.
explained, okay, that feeling of that brick of lead in your stomach, this is like, I'm not digesting my protein. And then when I took the betaine HCl and I was like, oh, I don't have that specific feeling anymore. I still have other symptoms, but it helped me with that. And I know that that's what it was supposed to do. That's when I could be like, okay, yes, this is working. And then really feel like I was more involved in my own process
Mhm.
and being my own expert of my own body, because nobody knows better
Huh?
than me what's going on in my body, just like that doctor who told me to do the elemental diet when, I really shouldn't have been restricting anymore.
You are the last
So,
person who should have done an elemental diet, dear Lord.
yeah, so
But
it's like you gave us the tools and then we could build our own,
yeah,
diet from that.
yeah, I figure I'm giving you the knowledge and the tools, and then it's up to you to implement and figure out how to work it into your life. And I'll try to nudge you forward and get you to do the right thing, but I can't manage your stress for you. I can't work on your relationships for you. I can't, take the pills or do whatever for you. But it's an interesting one for you too, because like you said, you tried betaine HCl, you tried prokinetics, and it's not to say, yeah, I think part of it is, like you said, just understanding it more and having more of a protocol and understanding exactly what to look for, how to judge clinical success with a tool. Like that was probably part of it. But also, if you were running a set 6, 7, 800 calorie deficit every day, there's no prokinetic on planet Earth that will fix that, right? Like if you jump forward to the prokinetics or the betaine HCl and you're blissfully unaware, or maybe aware and you're not acting on it. Like if you're malnourished or if your body doesn't have the building blocks to do what it needs to do, I could give you the world's best herbs and it's not going to matter. It's not going to do a damn thing, right? Because you had something way more foundational that you needed to cover.
Right.
So I wonder if that
Right.
was a piece of it for you too.
Oh, totally. And even with the extensive intake that the providers have done, like they don't have the ability to get all of that information, and also like from visit to visit keep
Mhm.
track of all of that information. And that's why like I have my notebook. This is my FODMAP freedom notebook. I have kept track of every single thing that I've learned and tried and done,
Yeah.
in the program, because that's what like you've taught us and shown, with your own experiments, that you've tracked this data, and that's how you can tell when I can't remember from month to month what's been going on.
Yeah.
But so I think it's one of those like, you can, if you give someone a fish, you feed them for a day. If you teach them to fish, then you feed them
Yeah.
for a lifetime. I think this program is for those people who want to learn how to fish. And so you have to do the work of the learning and the doing the fishing yourself, but you get that gift that keeps on giving. And it's not just someone giving you that magic pill that feeds you for that one day. And the other thing that I was gonna say is that this, you know, oh no, I'm forgetting what I was gonna say. I think it was just about the having the program in my pocket, and having all of the
Uh,
modules that we've done so far, and having it be in order. I can refer to it anytime when
yep.
I have that need to, like, I need to research something. It's like it was there, and I could
Mhm.
allocate all that time that I would normally be Googling stuff, and I could put that time into this beautiful program that you have laid out in such an organized way, and then it's
I'm an
building on
artist at
itself.
heart.
Yeah. But the other thing I wanted to address is about the financial
Mm.
issues, because I actually, for health reasons, I've been off work for several months, and I've lost a lot of financial stability due to that. And I signed up for FODMAP Freedom right at the beginning of that, and so it was a big financial commitment for me. I'm not like someone who just has spare cash lying around, but the investment in this program is up front and not sprinkled throughout. And the way that it worked out for me was that I spent probably the same amount of money or comparable that I would going to a doctor, except that on the doctor, the upfront cost is like, oh, it's going to be a $35 copay. And I'm like, oh, great. So that's what I think in my mind. This will be a breeze. But then there's all these hidden unexpected costs when they say, oh, we recommend doing SIBO breath testing, and that's going to be $350 out of pocket. And we recommend these,
Yeah.
These supplements and these whatevers and these other tests. And I've spent hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on hidden costs that I didn't plan on.
Yeah.
And blood work and all this stuff with my providers that wasn't, told to me up front. Whereas
And you got
with
nothing to
FODMAP
show for it.
freedom, right. And
That's the thing is like, it would be one thing if that worked, but
right.
usually it doesn't.
But it didn't. No, it just got me more and more desperate, which maybe is what helped me land here eventually. But
Yeah.
but for this, you've told us what the cost is up front, and then you give us more than I ever anticipated to receive with the class. And then you, like you said, we can do this all without doing testing, without doing, other stuff. Like
Yeah.
it really isn't a bunch of other costs, and that you even say that you don't want us to be investing in like tons of, supplements and stuff and spending a ton of money on taking 30 capsules a day and all that. But the thing that hasn't been brought up yet is that you sampled all of these different products for us during the program that like I cannot afford to go out and nor do I want to waste buying, 15 different things and trying each one of them till I find which one works. Like that was a part of what the price of the class paid for, was for me to be able to try all of this stuff that you've already found to be effective for some people. And then I can see which one's effective for me without buying all of that. And that was a huge thing because I get the decision paralysis in the health food store, and I've already tried so many things, and I, it just really like took a lot of that confusion out. And then I don't have the supplement graveyard of stuff sitting there that I didn't finish taking. So
Oh yes,
those were
the
the main
graveyards
to share. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate you bringing that up too, because honestly, those sample packets, the speed dating kits that I send you guys for the program, it's a labor of love, let me tell you. Dear God, like it is a whole operation. I've got little cups and pill baggies and labels, and it's a whole operation. It takes me a couple days to get through it all usually, and I'll be honest, it's a huge pain in the ass, but it's worth it. Yeah, that wasn't the point of it, I suppose. But the thing is, like, this is not just some online course. If it was just going to be an online course where it's like, yeah, here's some videos, go, good luck to you, I would just put the damn thing on YouTube, right? I have a YouTube channel. I have the ability to put the video content on YouTube if I want to, but it's not about the lectures so much. I mean, yeah, like having an order and like a format to it and a flow to it is really helpful, but a lot of it is that the Q&A and like the group experience. I've joked from day one, like part of the magic is in the group environment, because you get to not only hear other people's questions that might apply to you, they might not, but also you get to hear, oh my God, Nikki introduced this food this week. She's feeling better. If it's possible for her, maybe it's possible for me. I think that the Q&As bring a lot of hope to a group of people who quite frankly need hope at this point. And it's like hearing other people's ahas and victories and seeing them succeed along the way gives you hope that you can succeed too. So it's like you get to feed off of that. But, I think the group Q&As and the support is a really big part of it. And yeah, like the testers, like, all right, I have a video in that program about probiotics that are safe for SIBO or probiotics that can help treat SIBO. Don't take my word for it, man. I'll send you 2 pills of each, and you just try a bunch of them and you report back and tell me which one you like. Or, I have videos on YouTube about how prokinetics are effective for SIBO and bloating and IBS kind of symptoms. Don't take my word for it. Here, you try them out, you report back, and then you guys get to be guinea pigs for my ongoing YouTube series. So I just posted the updated video recently, actually. The first video of the new year was the updated data collection from the prokinetic experiment, but you guys made that happen. I just collect the data in a spreadsheet and report on it every couple of years. But, there's a lot that goes into FODMAP freedom behind the scenes that, again, it's a lot of work on my end, but it's worth it. And that's part of what makes it effective for you guys. And that's ultimately what this is about. It's not just a bunch of lectures. It's, yeah, I'm educating you, but I'm trying to kind of hold your hand through the process and teach you how to build a SIBO-proof body at the end of the day. And hopefully give you the
Oh,
tools to do that.
and you actually care. And you don't have to say that. Like, I know, like, so many reasons why I can tell through and through this thing that you actually care about helping people, and that you've done this because you had your own experience and you know what we're all going through and you could relate to that, and you don't want us to be stuck and confused and overwhelmed, and otherwise you wouldn't go through the tediousness of doing the little baggies.
Yeah.
You could just all have us sign up for the program without that, and you could
Mhm.
still have a FODMAP freedom, but you've done that because you know that it makes an extra difference for us, and that
Yeah.
and that it goes the extra mile to help us on our journey, and then you get data and it helps more people.
Exactly.
And I just think that's like very wholesome, that you're motivated by that, and you're not just like trying to sell us stuff, because you're not even trying to sell us the stuff that you sampled to us. You're like, buy it wherever,
yeah.
Like, if I can get it from your dispensary, I will, but I know that that's not your motivation, at the
Yeah.
end of
No,
it.
it's, I think that there are a lot of people out there who need help. And I mean, Lord knows, what is it, 10 or 20% of the general population have IBS, something like that in developed countries. And then a pretty fair whack of those people probably have SIBO. And it's all kind of a mishmash of the same sort of stuff anyway, at the end of the day. Crappy motility, pun intended, by the way, gut-brain axis connection, digestive capacity, nutrition, microbiome changes. Um, but yeah, there's an awful lot of people who need this help and need this support. And hopefully, hopefully I can offer a beacon of hope to those people who are really struggling, whether it be here on YouTube or my podcast, or ultimately in something like FODMAP Freedom. But yeah, and I grow attached to you guys too. The more I get to know you guys in the Q&As, like you're my little ducklings. Mama Duck is so proud of all of her little ducklings. And again, I was saying before we got live on YouTube here that this was such a fun excuse to hang out with some of my favorite people and have a little family reunion of sorts. And I cannot thank you enough for being on this call. And hopefully you offered a morsel of hope to other people who are really struggling and needed to hear from you guys. I do have to wrap up the call now, though, because I have been hydrating fairly well and my bladder is now quite aware of that fact. So, and I know Nikki has her hot Mexican food date with her friends to get to also. Um, so I think that we're going to wrap up here. But guys, again, thank you. Round of applause. Not, this isn't the same as when we do a round of applause for people in the Q&As in FODMAP Freedom. It's like 10 people all doing it at once, and it's really fun. I'm envisioning the people watching on YouTube right now are doing the round of applause. If you didn't, know that I could see you, and I know. But seriously, thank you for being here. Thank you all for tuning in on YouTube for our first ever inaugural FODMAP Freedom Alumni panel. And like I said, hopefully this gave some people a little bit of hope, a little bit of encouragement that they needed to know that they can get through the dark days and they can heal their gut and they can come out the other side feeling like a pretty normal person. And isn't that the goal, to feel like a pretty normal person at the end of the day? But yeah, thank you guys. And I will see you hopefully on a Q&A really soon. We're going to be starting, the meet and greet is Friday for the new students, and we'll hear some of their stories. And then we're going to get right into Q&As next week. So hopefully you guys, hopefully you proud alumni ducklings will tune into a Q&A, even if it's just to hang out in sponge mode or offer a word of support to the new bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, bewildered, terrified ducklings who are starting with us real soon. So, all right. If we're able enough, thank you again. And let's see. Now, how do
Thank
I
you so much.
stop?